what I'm talking about. See, I know what it's like to be poor, and I know what it's like to live in poverty. But according to John, we are supposed to have prosperity in the midst of our poverty. This concept of living from the inside out deals with regulating your internal so that you can cope with and eventually alter your external. Let me show you what I mean. Your internal faith can move external mountains. It can split external seas. Your internal faith can make a dramatic impact on your external circumstances. The problem that we have today is we're so focused on trying to find our answers out here when the Bible says, "He that is within you is greater than he that is within the world." That means if you have the right thing inside of you, your environment simply does not matter as much. If you have the right thing inside of you, you can prosper in any environment. You can overcome any problem. You can conquer any situation. You can become victorious in any battle if you have the right thing inside of you. The proof is in the pudding. If you have the right ingredients, your environment simply does not matter as much. So tonight we're going to deal with this concept of living from the inside out, which begins with regulating your internal conflict. As most of us probably already know, inside every regenerated or saved individual, there is an internal conflict. We identify this battle as the battle between the spirit and the flesh. Now, this battle can have a monumental effect on what type of life that you live. It's like two people in a car who are both fighting for control of the steering wheel. The car can be going one direction one moment and a completely different direction the next moment, depending upon who's driving. In the same way, if you're being driven by your spiritual nature, you have one set of desires and intentions. But if you're being driven by your fleshly nature, you have a completely different set of desires and intentions. You may be polite, generous, and warm when you're being driven by your spiritual nature, but if your flesh gets a hold of you, I know you know what I'm talking about. If your flesh gets a hold of you, you can be rude, malicious, and cold. See, people who cannot control their internal conflict are completely unstable. They waver from side to side. They're inconsistent. You can't rely on them. You don't know what to expect from them. They're the kind of people that can praise with you at church and cuss you out before they get home. They may compliment you one second and persecute you the next. But before we judge too much, let me say this, that even Paul had a hint of instability in his voice when he addressed his internal conflict. Listen to the words of Paul in Romans chapter 7, verse 18 through 21. "For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good I find not. For the good that I would do, I do not, but the evil which I would not, that I do. Now, if I do that I would not, it is no longer I that do it, but sin that dwelleth with me, that sin that dwelleth in me. I find then a law that when I would do good, evil is present with me. When I would stand to be the man of God I know that I can be, when I would stand to do what I know I've been called to do, when I would take a stand for what's right and be strong in the midst of adversity, something is working against me. When I would do good, evil is present with me." You see, Paul understood that he had a nature inside of him that was completely opposed to the gospel. Paul understood that he had a fleshly nature that was attracted to and even fantasized about the things of the world. What you need to understand is that the same nature that existed inside Paul exists inside each and every one of us. You know, I'm not an ignorant preacher. I know that we are not made up of sugar and spice and everything nice. There is a side of us that is attracted to the things of the world. We all have a flesh. Ironically, it is the people that are closest to us who get the most exposure to our flesh. This is probably why Jesus said that a prophet is without honor except in his own country, in his own town, and among his own kin. It's the people that you're closest to who get the most exposure to your flesh. This is probably why it's difficult to preach to your spouse. Every now and then I'll come across some Bible verses that I feel like would fix my wife, that they would improve her character. And I'll take those Bible verses to her and read them to her, and I get absolutely no reaction, no response whatsoever. Let someone outside of my house take those same Bible verses to her, and it's an absolutely